Hello everyone, this side Priyanka Saxena and I'll be telling you about indirect taxation. As you all know that our course of indirect taxation mainly consists of GST and customs duty. So today I'll brief you about customs valuation. As you all know that customs duty is a tax on import and exportation of goods. It is generally chargeable on importation of goods so as to protect Indian economy. For example, if I say that an Indian manufacturer Videocon Limited manufactures and supplies a television set in the Indian economy for rupees 20,000 per unit, and at the same time a foreign manufacturer Sony Limited supplies similar kind of television set to the Indian economy for rupees 20,000 only, and you as an Indian buyer have two options of Indian television set worth rupees 20,000 and foreign television set of similar price. Which television set you generally opt? As usual, we generally opt the imported goods because we have more faith on international technology as compared to Indian technology. If each buyer gets attracted to imported goods, then that would amount to fall in the demand of Indian goods. That is, if Indian buyer gets attracted to imported goods more, they purchases imported goods more, that would automatically affected the demand of the reduction in demand of Indian goods, which would result in the reduction in manufacturing of Indian goods, which would amount to retrenchment of employees. That means generally most of the employers reduce their employees because of reduction in the scale of production, and the retrenchment of employees would amount to fall in GDP rate. GDP amounts to the aggregate of goods and services supplied during a financial year. So if employment goes down, then automatically GDP growth rate will reduce. And moreover, importation results in increasing cash outflows from India. Like most of the buyers purchasing imported goods would pay off the cash to the foreign manufacturer. Therefore, in order to protect the Indian domestic manufacturer from all these obstacles, generally on all imported goods, a tax will become chargeable in the name of custom duty. Indian government says that as and when any imported goods enters into Indian market, enters into Indian boundary, they shall be liable to a tax in the name of custom duty. Let's say they have charged custom duty on television set at the rate 100%. So that would amount to 20,000 of duty on television set of 20,000 rupees, which would amount to total price of imported television set in Indian economy at the rate 40,000. And now if Indian buyer have the option to purchase Indian television set for 20,000 as compared to imported television set for 40,000, then obviously most of the Indian buyers would attract to Indian television set as compared to imported goods, because the price of imported goods is much higher than the Indian product, and that would automatically reduce the cash outflows from India. That would affect the demand, increasing demand in Indian goods, increasing manufacturing in Indian goods, increasing employment rate and increasing GDP rate. So therefore, mainly on importation of all goods in India, custom duty shall always be chargeable. However, on the other side, if we talk about exportation of goods from Indian economy, if we manufacture a television set in Indian economy and we export it subsequently, then in most of the cases no duty shall be chargeable, no custom duty shall be chargeable, so that the Indian price of Indian goods in the global market will get reduced. And if Indian manufacturer supplies better quality product at lower price in the global market, then that would automatically result in increasing demand of such goods in the global economy. And if its demand goes up, then obviously its manufacturing goes up, resulting in higher employment opportunities and increasing GDP rate in Indian economy. So mainly on exportation this duty doesn't charge, as compared to there are certain exceptions wherein if goods are in India are in scarcity, then government charges custom duty thereupon, because government doesn't want to deliver those scarce resources from India to abroad. So generally no custom duty on exportation other than scarcity goods, and other than that we generally charge custom duty on importation of goods. Okay. So if we talks about importation of goods, this duty shall always be chargeable, and in order to charge this duty there is a particular process which we need to follow. So today I'll just brief about this valuation segment, and in length we'll go later. Generally what happened at the time of importation, any importer from India places an order to the exporter located abroad. For say, if in the given case I say Mr. Ram, being the importer located in India, places an order to Mr. John of US, who is the exporter, and after placing this order, exporter shall quote the price of such goods which are being ordered. Exporter says that the goods being ordered by Mr. Ram have a worth of rupees 100 lakh, but exporter wants security whether this payment is being made by Ram or not, because exporter is located abroad, he doesn't have any access in the Indian economy, and he is having insecurity that whether Mr. Ram, being the importer, makes payment of such importation on time or not. Therefore, Mr. John demands Mr. Ram to give him a security of such payment. Because of such reason, Ram visits the Indian bank to obtain security of the payment to be made by importer to exporter. And bank will give security to importer only if importer have such financial worth. For say, the order being placed by Ram in the given example worth rupees 100 lakhs, banks give him the guarantee of rupees 100 lakhs only if Ram has worth of such amount. And Ram, in order to prove that he is having 100 lakhs, bank might ask Ram to make a fixed deposit in the account of bank of rupees 100 lakh. Firstly, Ram make a fixed deposit of 100 lakh to the bank, and bank, after receiving such deposit, he shall issue a guarantee letter to Ram assuring John the exporter that Ram will definitely make his payment on time. And if Ram conducts any default in such payment, then bank will pay payment on behalf of Ram from his fixed deposit himself. The guarantee given by bank to Ram in a document is known as letter of credit. What we call it as? Letter of credit. We also abbreviate it as LC. LC is the abbreviation of letter of credit. And once this guarantee being given by bank to Ram under letter of credit, then Ram shall forward this letter of credit to exporter Mr. John. Mr. John, being exporter, after receiving the guarantee from the importer through letter of credit via Indian bank, his payment gets secured, and then he shall dispatch goods from the foreign port. Exporter, Mr. John, generally ask Ram to deliver the goods up to the foreign port because Sales of Goods Act says that risk passes with ownership, and whosoever will be the owner of the goods shall be treated or shall be liable to have risk over such goods. So generally in practical life, exporter takes guarantee of such goods only up to his foreign port to get it uploaded in the foreign vessel or aircraft through which goods gets imported in India. Although it does not always happen, there might be situation that exporter takes guarantee to deliver the goods to the Indian port, but practically, generally, in maximum number of cases, exporter takes guarantee to deliver the goods only up to his foreign port, and in order to make it sure that in future the ownership of goods will remain with the importer, he shall transfer the ownership of goods in a document known as bill of lading. Bill of lading is a document in which exporter transfers ownership of goods in the name of importer, and this bill of lading generally issued at the time of loading of goods at the foreign port itself. So Mr. John, after receiving confirmation of his payment, he shall load the goods in the vessel or the ship along with issuing bill of lading, a document in which Mr. Exporter transfer the ownership of goods in the name of Mr. Importer, and exporter shall also issue another document in the name of invoice or bill in which he shall mention the amount to be paid by importer to exporter. Exporter Mr. John shall issue this bill of lading and invoice along with loading of goods in the vessel, and this document shall be handed over by the exporter to the master of the vessel or the person in charge. That means if these goods are loaded in the aircraft, then the person in charge will be the pilot of the aircraft, and if these goods are loaded in the vessel, then the person in charge will be the master of the vessel or the captain. Exporter, while issuing these documents of bill of lading and invoice to the master of the vessel, he generally incur all the expenses to be occurred while loading of such goods at the foreign port. Those expenses generally consist of cost of production, selling and distribution overheads, all the indirect expenses incurred to be happened for advertising and distributing and supplying those goods to the buyer, any other indirect expenses, any other overheads, taxes and duties if any paid in the foreign country, freight and insurance up to the foreign port. Obviously, if he is taking guarantee to load the goods at the foreign port and post then he is transferring ownership in the name of importer, then he shall incur only freight and insurance to be incurred up to the foreign port from his factory. And then it comes about loading charges, loading of those goods in the vessel, and the profit margin of the exporter. All these expenses which are incurred by exporter along with his profit margin shall be mentioned by him in the invoice, and the amount mentioned in the invoice will generally be known as transaction value. Transaction value is the value at which transaction took place, that means the sale price, the selling price at which goods are being sold from exporter to importer. It is generally also known as FOB value. FOB value stands for free on board value. Free on board value is the value at which goods are loaded at the foreign port, and this name has been given because generally the vessel, the ship couldn't reach to the land because of its depth, due to which a board has been placed from land to the entrance of ship through which the goods being loaded in the vessel. So the amount at which goods being loaded freely with the help of board in the vessel is known as FOB value, and this FOB value is generally occurred to be the transaction value generally, although there are certain adjustments which we will see subsequently, which might not be included in the transaction value, but has to be included in the FOB value. That we will see later. But as of now, we can consider the value at which goods being loaded at the foreign port is known as FOB value, which is generally happen to be the transaction value at which exporter sold goods to the importer, and the amount mentioned in invoice has to be paid by importer to the exporter. Okay. Now we says that since ownership of these goods generally being transferred by exporter in the name of importer at the foreign port while loading the goods at the foreign port in the vessel or aircraft, therefore, any expense to be incurred after it has to be bear by the importer himself, who has become the owner of these goods now. For example, if I say that on 15th April 2019, these goods being loaded at the foreign port, then on the same date, the ownership of goods has been transferred in the name of Ram under bill of lading, then any other expense to be incurred post 15th April has to be bear by Ram himself, because now he is being the owner of these goods. And generally the expenses to be incurred thereafter is the freight and insurance of those goods to deliver those goods to the Indian port. The freight means the cost of transportation, and the insurance. Since now Ram is in the owner of these goods and he is being the owner, bear the risk of these goods, and these goods which are not in his possession might be lost during transit. While goods coming through ocean, there could be probabilities that ship could sink due to an accidental cause, or the pirates can come over and take looted these goods out. So to cover up all these risks, Ram, the owner of these goods, generally insure these goods by them. And the insurance premium paid by Ram for insuring the goods from foreign port to Indian port has to be paid by Ram himself, after which goods gets delivered at the Indian port. So the price at which goods gets delivered in the Indian port will be known as CIF value, which full form is cost, insurance and freight value, which is nothing but the aggregate of FOB, insurance and freight itself. That is CIF equals to FOB plus freight plus insurance, after which goods gets delivered at Indian port. Now at port, always remember this point. The port where a custom officer being standing shall ask the importer to pay custom duty upon these goods, and Ram, who shall come over to the port to collect these goods, shall be liable to compute and pay custom duty thereupon. Now Ram shall need two elements to compute duty at that point of time. The first element is the assessable value. AV means the assessable value at which duty has to be computed. The value at which duty has to be computed will be known as assessable value, and the process of computing this assessable value will be known as valuation. So you must be aware that what all we are doing in this chapter. Here we are focusing more on determining the assessable value at which custom duty shall be computed. And the other element need to be determined is the rate of duty, which is generally mentioned in CTA, Custom Tariff Act. This rate is generally given in the exams, but if the rate is not given, then you can assume it to be 10%. Although 99% of the cases question always mention the rate of duty to be chargeable, but there was an attempt wherein the rate of duty was not given, due to which institute has given a clarification that if rate is absent in question, then you can assume it to be 10%. Okay. So the rate is not in matter since it is always given in the question, but the value at which duty has to be computed needs to be determined by you himself. The value at which duty has to be computed is known as assessable value. Since custom duty is being computed at Indian port, therefore assessable value shall always be taken as the aggregate of all the expenses incurred to deliver those goods at Indian port. So, the assessable value shall be taken as the aggregate of all the expenses incurred to deliver the goods at Indian port, which used to include our landing charges. Earlier, under custom laws, the landing charges or the unloading expenses to land those goods at Indian port shall also be included in assessable value. But there was a change in past law in which landing charges has been removed while computing the assessable value. Lawmaker says that although duty has to be computed at the Indian port and the value has to be taken at Indian port, but we are not including landing charges anymore because this is an expense incurred at Indian port by the importer himself. And by giving relaxation of not including landing charges is a benefit to the importer, due to which by not including landing charges the assessable value has been reduced, resulting in reduction in custom duty altogether. It means that assessable value at Indian port shall be equal to the CIF value at which goods are delivered at Indian port. And CIF value is nothing but the aggregate of FOB and freight and insurance itself. Okay. So, once CIF has been computed, then the CIF value has to be taken as assessable value, upon which rate shall get multiplied from custom tariff act and ultimately resulting in the computation of custom duty. The duty computed so shall be paid by importer to the custom officer, after which custom officer shall issue an order for clearance, onwards of which the goods gets cleared by the importer from the custom port. So, this is the basic process we generally determine while importing the goods at the Indian port. But always remember, since duty has to be computed at Indian port, therefore, the assessable value at which duty has to be computed shall be taken as aggregate of all the expenses incurred by any of the person, either incurred by the exporter himself or incurred by the importer himself to release those goods at the Indian port, shall be taken as the assessable value. It means we can conclude that all those expenses which are incurred up to the Indian port shall be known as pre-importation expense, and all these pre-importation expenses shall be added in the assessable value. However, any expense incurred after port or after CIF, any expense incurred after CIF shall be considered as post importation expense, and any post importation expense shall be ignored while computing assessable value. This is the basic principle behind custom valuation. So, whatever question, whatever adjustment comes in your exam, always remember that any expense incurred up to the Indian port, any expense incurred to deliver the imported goods at Indian port, either those expenses are incurred by exporter or importer on behalf of exporter, shall be added in the assessable value upon which duty needs to be computed. However, any expense incurred after port, being post importation expense, shall always be ignored while computing this assessable value. Okay. So, this is the basic structure behind custom valuation. Now, we can consider the whole process under valuation laws. Central government has made proper laws on the instructions given to it by Parliament under Customs Act. We can understand the flow through a flow chart of valuation of custom duty under legal citation. There was a section 14 of Customs Act 1962 which talks about customs valuation. As we all know, the act has been made by Parliament. So Parliament under this section 14 has empowered central government to make proper laws for defining the assessable value upon which duty has to be computed. Section 14 have two subsections. One is section 14 subsection 1 which talks about the transaction value or the invoice price on the basis of which assessable value has to be determined, and section 14 subsection 2 talks about tariff value. This tariff value is the value notified by government himself. As and when government feels that there is a market economic fluctuation on any article, then central government can notify the value of such goods which can either be more than the normal selling price or less than that, upon which duty has to be computed. We can understand it through a proper illustration subsequently, but right now the only basic we need to understand is that this is the value always notified by government in case of any economic fluctuation. So whenever government has notified any value upon which duty has to be computed, then such value is known as tariff value. Always remember that this value determined by, notified by government only for the purpose of computing duty. It does not have any relevance with the actual selling price of those goods. And always remember, if central government has notified tariff value for any article, then such article shall be computed, or the duty on such article shall always be computed on such tariff value which shall be taken as AV of such goods. However, if government has not declared, has not notified any tariff value for an article, then its valuation shall be done under section 14(1), wherein central government has been empowered to draft proper laws for determining assessable value under different scenarios. And on the basis of the power given under section 14 subsection 1, central government has drafted two set of rules. One set of rule talks about customs determination of price of imported goods. They are also known as DPIG rules, determination of price of imported goods. And another set talks about determination of price of exported goods, which can be known as DPEG rules, determination of price of exported goods. Both of these rules have been issued in the year 2007. Always remember that rules have been made by central government, and any rule, rule 1 would amount to title, that under rule 1 the title or the heading has been given. Under rule 2 always definition has been given of different terms being used in under those rules. The main provision startups with rule 3. Under both the cases, either we talks about imported goods or we talks about exported goods. And always remember that under custom valuation rules, the rules needs to be proceed sequentially. It's a very important term. Under custom valuations, all the rules needs to be proceed sequentially, that is, in no case assessable value can be determined directly under rule 4 or 5 or 7 or 8. That by proceeding sequentially, we shall always determine the assessable value first of all primarily under rule 3. That is, the first preference shall always be given under rule 3. Subject to certain conditions, the transaction value or the invoice price at which goods are imported in India, certain additions needs to be made under rule 10, and the aggregate of both of them shall be taken as the assessable value. What all are the additions under rule 10, that we will see subsequently. I am just giving you a macro idea, a brief idea about what all we are going to do now, what all additions and subtractions, what all flow of information we will be going in near future. Primarily always remember that under rule 3, assessable value shall be determined, and if on non-compliance of any condition mentioned under Rule 3, that is, if either of the conditions given under Rule 3 are not satisfied, then by proceeding sequentially, the assessable value of such imported goods shall always be determined under Rule 4. That is, the second preference shall always be given to Rule 4, wherein the value of identical goods shall be taken as the assessable value of imported goods. Now, what is identical goods? That we will again see later. But right now, just keep in mind that the valuation shall be done only in the sequence given under Rule 3, 4 and 5 and so on. So, first of all, apply Rule 3. If that rule cannot be applied, then go to Rule 4, where identical goods value shall be taken as AV. And if there are no identical goods, then by proceeding sequentially, you can go to Rule 5. The third preference shall be given to Rule 5, where the value of similar goods shall be taken as the assessable value. Now, what is similar goods? That again we will see now, although there is a difference between identical and similar, wherein the first preference shall always be given to identical first, post which the second preference shall be given to similar goods. And if neither identical nor similar goods exist, then by proceeding sequentially we shall go to Rule 6, which says that Rule 7 and Rule 8 can be applied without any sequence. That means directly from Rule 6 you can go to Rule 8, and if Rule 8 cannot be applied, then you can vice versa go to Rule 7. There is no need to apply sequence in Rule 7 and Rule 8. The reason behind that again we will see later, but the only difference between them is that Rule 7 talks about the deductive value, the value which shall be determined at the Indian port by deducting all the post importation expenses therefrom, and if no post importation expenses or post importation value is given, then under Rule 8 computed value shall be taken, wherein the aggregate of all the expenses incurred from foreign port or from foreign manufacturer, foreign exporter to the Indian port shall be taken as AV. And if neither deductive value nor computed value can be determined by whatsoever reason, then by proceeding sequentially under Rule 9, the residual value shall be taken as the assessable value. Here the residual value shall be the value which shall be determined by proper officer, custom officer, by applying his best judgment assessment, which shall be done on some reasonable grounds, and those grounds, those reasons must be given in writing by the custom officer himself, so that no manipulation, no corruption can take place thereof. Okay. So, just have a brief idea that under valuation, the rules, the value shall be determined in the sequence from Rule 3 to Rule 9, subject to certain exceptions under Rule 6. And similarly, while determining the assessable value of exported goods, although no custom duty is chargeable generally on exportation, but in case if there is any scarcity of those goods in Indian economy, then on those goods which are already in scarcity in Indian economy, we would like to charge custom duty even on their exportation, because we doesn't want to lose those goods from the Indian economy. Then while computing custom duty at the time of their exportation, the assessable value shall be determined under DPEG rules 2007, wherein Rule 1 talks about title, Rule 2 talks about definition, and from Rule 3 to Rule 6 again you need to proceed sequentially. This is the important essence of custom valuation, wherein again assessable value cannot be directly determined under Rule 5. You have to first follow, primarily apply Rule 3, and if Rule 3 cannot be applied, then you can go to Rule 4 by proceeding sequentially, and again if Rule 4 cannot be applied, then Rule 5 and then Rule 6, wherein under Rule 3 transaction value shall be taken as the assessable value, that is the price mentioned in exportation, the price mentioned in invoice by the exporter, and if that price, that amount is not sustainable, is not validated, then the value of like supply, like goods, similar or identical goods shall be taken into consideration, and if that value, that goods is not available, that goods are not available, then computed value, wherein the aggregate of all the expenses incurred by exporter from his factory to port of exportation shall be taken as AV, and even if that amount cannot be determined, but then by proceeding sequentially, the residual value shall be taken as assessable value, which shall be determined by proper officers subject to best judgment assessment. Okay. So, these are the basic rules which we will be doing in detail now onwards. Let us start with rule 3 of importation, wherein it says that assessable value shall be taken as the aggregate of transaction value and additions under rule 10. This rule 10 is very important, wherein certain additional amounts being given, certain adjustments being given, which needs to be added while determining the assessable value. Let us start with rule 10 now. Rule 10 talks about various additions under two subcategories, that is one rule 10 sub rule 1 and another one rule 10 sub rule 2. Under rule 10 sub rule 1 we have expressed additions. Expressed additions talks about various adjustments which needs to be adjusted while computing assessable value only if they are specifically given in the question. It means these adjustment does not arise always. These adjustments could arise in either of the situations, and only if that situation occurs, then such amount shall be added while computing AV. We will see these adjustments little later. Today we will start up with another adjustments under rule 10 sub rule 2, wherein we have implied additions. Implied additions means under this sub rule we have few adjustments which has to be added always. That is, these adjustments shall be done always, even if they are not given in question. Ma'am, how does it possible that the expense has not been actually incurred and still its amount shall be added while computing assessable value? Lawmaker says whenever goods are imported from abroad to India, then there are two expenses which needs to be occurred for such delivery. One expense is of freight, that is cost of transportation, and another expense is of insurance. Since goods being transported from long distance and there is a huge risk during such transfer, therefore generally 100% of these goods gets insured by the owner of such goods, and insurance has to be done of these goods while delivering it to the Indian port. But there could be certain probabilities when importer does not directly incur this freight or insurance, because he might be the owner of the vessel or aircraft in which goods are being transported, or he might be having the insurance company itself through which his insurance has been done. For example, if I would say that Reliance importing certain input in their own vessel, in their own ship, then do they have to charge additional freight from themselves? Obviously not. That means if you travel in your own conveyance, do you charge freight from yourself? No. It is just an imputed cost which we generally consider under custom valuation. Lawmaker says if freight or cost of transportation has been actually given in the question, then you need to add the actual cost while determining AV. However, if this cost is not being mentioned because it might not be occurred actually by the importer, as he must be carrying goods in his own vessel or aircraft, then while determining assessable value for custom duty, 20% of FOB shall be added thereon. This rule 10(2) talks about freight in two different manners. It says that if goods being transported by air, through air mode, then while determining the assessable value, add actual cost of such freight or 20% of FOB, whichever is less. This whichever is less concept is mentioned just to encourage air industry. Government want to encourage, promote air industry which is already suffering from huge losses. Since government has privatized this sector, therefore it is the responsibility of government to protect this sector from unwanted obstacles. Now, air industry having a huge competition due to multiple airlines, they generally suffer losses, due to which government encourages importer to import goods through air vessels, through aircrafts. But importers are bit cautious because they feel that if they will import goods through aircraft, then it would amount to higher cost, and moreover, while determining custom duty, the assessable value includes the air freight which is generally higher than the vessel freight. Therefore, in order to promote this air industry, government says that while determining assessable value for custom duty, we shall add the 20% of FOB or the actual cost of freight, whichever is less. This provision is only for the freight by air. However, if goods are being imported through any other mode other than air, being vessel, railways, roadways, etc., then law says if their actual cost is known or given, then always add actual cost, and if such actual cost is not known or not given, then you have to add 20% of FOB while determining AV. However, for another cost of insurance, it says if the actual cost of insurance is known, then add actual cost, and if actual cost of insurance is not known, then you have to add 1.125% of FOB. These two expenses are impliedly to be added while determining AV, even if they are not given in question. Earlier, there was another expense in the name of landing charges which needs to be added while determining AV, but it has been removed, it has been abolished from the law so as to encourage the importer importing more goods by reducing their assessable value. Since obviously, since one addition has not been made, therefore their assessable value has been reduces, resulting in lower amount of custom duty. So now onwards only two additions has to be made impliedly, one freight and another one in insurance, where freight is if by air, then add actual cost or 20% of FOB whichever is less, and if it is by any other mode, then actual cost given, then add actual cost, and if such cost is not given, then add 20% of FOB. However, in case of insurance, if actual cost is given, then add actual cost, and if such cost is not given, then you have to add 1.125% of FOB. Okay. Now, in question, if only freight is given, then you have to assume it to be any other mode other than air, because practically in majority of the cases goods are being imported through waterways or vessel. You can consider air freight only if it is specifically mentioned in the question. And on the basis of rule 10(2), basically 4 types of practical questions can come up in the exams. Let us see those questions. Type 1 question which can be based on rule 10(2) will be a very simple question, wherein it will say that A Limited imported goods from US for FOB value. FOB value stands for the value at which goods are loaded at the foreign port or the port of exportation. For an FOB value of $20,000 by air, they have specifically mentioned it that importation has been done by air. At the freight of $4,500, compute custom duty if rate of duty is 40% and $1 is 70 rupees. So, if FOB value is given 20,000 and air freight is given, then you have to make additions under rule 10(2), wherein air freight shall be taken as lower of actual cost or 20% of FOB, that is $4,000, and then you have to add insurance. Even if it is not given in the question, you have to add it at 1.125% of FOB, which goes to the aggregate of these three amounts will amount to CIF value, which is $24,225. To be converted in Indian rupees, it would amount to 16,95,750 rupees. This CIF value shall be taken as your assessable value, upon which custom duty shall be computed at 40%, to be taken as 6,78,300. This is the basic question which can come upon on the basis of Rule 10.2. Another type of question which can raise from Rule 10.2 is type 2, wherein in the question CIF value has been given along with air freight. In the given question, it says that B Limited imported goods from US at a CIF value of $50,000, including air freight at the rate $12,000. Here CIF includes actual air freight. The accountant of B Limited has included actual air freight. Now we have to make a comparison whether he did the correct computation or not, because in case of air freight we have to add actual or 20% of FOB, whichever is less. And it says that insurance, that is actual insurance, is given at the rate $3,000 is being included in $50,000 of CIF value. Now we need to compute custom duty if rate is 20% and $1 is 70 rupees. In such type of question wherein CIF value along with air freight is given, we need to determine FOB value from the CIF value. CIF value is $50,000. Now from CIF we have to determine FOB, that means we have to deduct actual air freight and actual insurance therefrom, post which FOB value comes to $35,000. Now we have to make adjustments in this FOB value according to Rule 10.2, and Rule 10.2 says that air freight shall be added as lower of actual cost, that is $12,000, or 20% of FOB, that is $7,000. The lower amount is $7,000 shall be added thereupon. It means in this question the accountant of B Limited has wrongly added the actual amount of air freight irrespective of the provision given under Rule 10.2, which says that in case of air freight only the lower of actual cost or 20% of FOB shall be added. So we have rectified it by determining the correct FOB, within which we have to add on the correct amount of freight and insurance as per Rule 10.2. So the air freight will be taken as lower of the two, and insurance, if actual cost is given, then has to be added in the actual cost itself, which would go to make your CIF actual amount gets computed for computing custom duty, upon which custom duty shall be computed at the rate 20% thereupon. Okay. Then comes to third type of practical question based on Rule 10.2, in which it says that C Limited imported goods from US at a CIF value of rupees 40,000, including freight at the rate 15% and insurance at the rate 1%. Whenever under any question CIF value has been given within which freight and insurance has been included in percentage, which is not in accordance to the percentage given under Rule 10.2, then you have to consider it that the accountant of this assessee has made the wrong computation, and he has to rectify this computation by deducting the wrong amount of percentage therefrom and by adding back the correct amount of percentage given under Rule 10.2. Rule 10.2 says that in case of freight 20% of FOB shall be added, wherein in the question it has been said that 15% of FOB has been added. Now you might think that ma'am, this 15% can be the actual cost. No beta. If this 15% could be the actual cost, then the actual cost must always be given in the amount itself and not in percentage, mind it. If this freight amounts to actual cost, then the amount has been given herein of 2000, 5000, whatever the case may be, instead of mentioning the percentage. Same is the case with insurance itself. So always remember that if in question freight and insurance is given in percentage, then it means the actual amount is not known, due to which they has considered the percentage, and the percentage has to be taken as per rule 10(2). And if the percentage given is in question is not in compliance of rule 10(2), then you have to make the rectifications therein. And this rectification is very simple. You can do it through linear programming, which is generally happened in your study material, or you can do it through simple unitary method. What we can do here, in the given question, CIF value has been given of 40,000 rupees, including freight 15% and insurance 1%. So we have to consider the unitary percentile for it. Let FOB be 100, because either freight or insurance, that is 20% or 1.125%, has to be determined on FOB, and percentage refers to 100. So I have assumed FOB as 100, upon which the accountant has wrongly entered freight at the rate 15%, that is 15, and insurance at the rate 1%, that is 1. Therefore, CIF in percentage after doing wrong entry is 116. Now this 116, we have given 40,000 rupees. For 40,000 rupees, 116 has been included, out of which 100th part will determine your FOB value, which is correct obviously. So correct FOB goes to 40,000 rupees divided by 116 multiplied by 100, which goes to 34,483. So due to this, now we can come back to our question. FOB given is 34,483. Now we have to do the adjustment by adding back the freight and insurance as per rule 10(2), which is freight shall be added at the rate 20% of FOB to be taken as 6897, and insurance to be taken as 1.125% of FOB to be taken as 388, which would amount to correct CIF for the assessable value of custom duty to be taken as 41,768, upon which custom duty to be added at the rate 70% for rupees 29,238. Okay. So this is the basic type of question which can come from rule 10(2). Another question which can come based on rule 10(2) is based on barging charges. What is this barging charges? Generally, when goods comes from abroad, from a distant place, then they comes within a huge, big, large vessel or ship. And the larger the ship, the deeper will be its depth. And if the depth is deeper enough, then they could not reach to the Indian port itself because of Archimedes' principle. You must have done it in physics, wherein it says that the nearer to the land you goes, the water level gets reduces. So if this is the water level, the land reduces thereupon, and a vessel with a deeper depth could not reach to the port itself because the depth is not enough there. So these larger vessels gets parked in a distant place which is known as outer anchorage. What do we call it as? Outer anchorage, where the master of the vessel, by applying anchor, park their vessel there in there itself. Or the medium size vessel could come little ahead to the port itself at another point known as jetty, from where goods gets transferred in the smaller vessel to be taken and unloaded at the Indian port. The process of transferring goods from one vessel to another vessel is known as transshipment, and the expenses incurred for such transshipment is known as barging charges, ship demurrage charges, or light rage charges. When you transfer goods from a huge vessel to the medium level vessel from outer anchorage, or from the medium level vessel to the smaller vessel from jetty, then the process of transshipment will amount to a pre-importation expense, because what we did, any expense incurred before port shall be taken as pre-importation, and the expenses incurred for such transshipment to be known as barging, ship demurrage or lighterage, being a pre-importation expense, shall be added before CIF value, because CIF value is the value to be taken as the value of goods at Indian port. So, obviously, this expense has been incurred before Indian port, before CIF value, therefore, this expense shall be added before CIF value itself. Based on this expense, last type of question can turn up on the basis of rule 10(2), which says type 4 question, delimited imported goods for FOB value of $50,000 from US at a barging charges of rupees 60,000 incurred from jetty to port. Compute custom duty payable if rate of duty is 40% and $1 is 70 rupees. Here FOB value is given as $50,000 to be taken in rupees as rupees 35 lakh, in which adjustment has to be made under rule 10(2) even if freight and insurance is not given in question. If freight is not given, then always has to be at 20% of FOB, and then insurance as 1.125% of FOB. Post which barging charges shall be added only if it is given in the question. That is, freight and insurance has to be added always, but barging has to be added only if it is specifically given in question, which is 60,000 rupees to be added therein. Post which CIF value goes to 42,99,375, upon which custom duty shall be added at the rate 40% to be taken as 17,90,750 rupees. Okay. So, this is all about rule 10(2), wherein it says that two expenses shall always be added, one freight and another one is insurance, even if they are not given in question. And on the basis of this rule, 4 types of question can come up, wherein in first category of question, no freight or insurance is given, then you have to add it on. In second type of question, CIF value is given with air freight, where you have to make adjustment for adding the correct air freight of lower of the two. In third case, CIF value must be given including wrong percentage of freight and insurance, which needs to be rectified. And in fourth case, another expense in the name of barging charges can come up, which shall be added only if it is specifically mentioned in the question. Okay. So, this is all about rule 10(2). Other than that, under rule 10(1) certain expenses could turn up, which we will see in next session. Till next session, you need to revise the whole concept which we did today. How does custom valuation takes place? How does goods gets imported in India? What all are the documents, letter of credit, bill of lading needs to be filed thereupon? What is FOB value? What is CIF value? Where the duty has to be computed at Indian port, and what amount of assessable value shall be taken thereof? Generally, the basic principle which I has given you, that custom duty is to be computed at Indian port, therefore, assessable value shall be taken as the aggregate of all those expenses which are incurred to deliver these goods at the Indian port shall be considered. Based on this principle, government has created certain rules given under DPIG rules, which needs to be followed in sequence. These sequence we will see again in the future sessions. Till then, you need to understand that primarily we have to apply rule 3, wherein assessable value shall be taken as the transaction value or invoice price, in which we have to make additions under rule 10, wherein under rule 10, 2 categories of additions has been given, wherein under 10(1) expressed additions being given and in 10(2) implied additions being given. Implied additions has to be added in case of freight and insurance always, but in case of barging it has to be added only if it is specifically given in the question. Whereas in case of rule 10(1), expenses to be added only if they are expressly mentioned in question, which we will again see in the future sessions. Till then, beta, thank you and God bless you all. Let's catch you up in next sessions. Bye-bye.